Hi, everyone. Welcome to Headmaster's Homeroom. I am Lady Hamilton. It's so nice to have you back on this Friday night. I'm excited because I have two fantastic guests this evening. And again, you know how much I love to meet people in the communities, find out what they're doing, what they've started, businesses that they have, bringing this information to you because I think we need to highlight the different people, collaborate together, and just definitely I love to show them off. So I am excited. And so I might not be up on Rumble yet, I see, but that's okay because I know my producer will come in and save the day. So if you catch us at the beginning in Rumble, I'm sorry if it's just cut off, but welcome everyone else. I am so excited to have you. I have put that hellos to everybody. And there we go. See my producer, he is phenomenal. Great time to talk about my producer as he's sitting here fixing things for me, because without him, I wouldn't have this amazing platform to share with you. So I always joke, somebody buy my producer a coffee, but literally you can go to buy me a coffee buymeacoffee.com/Scott Adam. Remember, it's Scott Adam, not Adams, but Scott Adam. So buymeacoffee.com/Scott Adam. And that's a great way to help our platform because we love bringing you different shows every single day. And we just love this family here at Liberty Arise. I am so thankful to be a part of that. So everyone, again, that's a great way to help us out. All right. Without that being said, we are live on Rumble. So hello, my Rumble fans. Thank you so much for coming and seeing me tonight. I'm Lady Hamilton, and I have two great guests for you. So before I bring him in, our first guest is someone I totally follow on Truth. Luckily, he follows me back. But I have this artist. His name is Brian Snuffer, and he blows me away. His talent alone, everyone, if you've not seen it, it is amazing. We're going to share all of his information with you tonight. But I have a great bio that I want to read to you. So here we go. His name is Brian Snuffer. Okay, he was born and raised in Muskegon. Sorry, might slaughter that. Muskegon, Michigan. Brian still makes his home there with his 4 children and wife. Growing up on Lake Michigan has been a blast for sure. Being able to live and work on the shores of one of the largest inland lakes in the world has been a wonderful thing. Brian began his art career when he was a child, when his father mentioned to him that he was bound to become a commercial artist while watching Brian draw one day. That seemed to stick. So it was off with the thoughts of becoming an astronaut and on to becoming an artist. It was, however, many years later that dream would become a reality. Only while in his 30s and after having a wife and several children and a home to look after, that Brian decided it was time to start making that become a vision and become a reality. So while armed with a beautiful family, he began forging a career that has arrived today as a full-time vocation. Brian has worked with the U.S. Coast Guard, Air Force, and Navy for many years now, and his work has illustrated the history of their respective aviation programs. Brian's work is proudly displayed in many personal collections around the world. He's had the privilege of having work displayed in many military museum collections. Included in these are the National Museum of Naval Aviation, the Pentagon, the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, Coast Guard Headquarters, Naval Air Station Whitney Island, Coast Guard Air Station Detroit, Traverse City, Barbers Point, Stika, Kodiak, ATC Mobile, Elizabeth City, Savannah, Clearwater, and more. Brian has the distinct honor of being the recipient of the 2016 R.G. Smith Award, one that has given once a year to an artist that has achieved excellence in aviation art. And this is, let me bring him in because welcome, Brian.
Hello.
Before I get started, we have to go with just my first connection and love to you, besides art, is my father is retired Navy. So that pulls on my beautiful strings, as I love to honor our soldiers and our military. And, he would say Navy's always the best, but, I'm thankful to them all. But that's really amazing. Winning that award is phenomenal. So congratulations.
Thank you.
I love the fact that also that you have been able to survive with selling your artwork. I mean, just as an artist alone, that is a really hard thing to do. A really hard thing to do. as being an artist myself, because you have to find that clientele and stuff. But I am so proud, and your work is phenomenal. So, do you want to
Thank you.
add anything and say hello to everybody?
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Yeah, it has been a privilege to be able to be involved in the military that I have. I think that it's, because I've done other things too. I've done work for Lucasfilm and Star Wars and stuff like that. And by far doing, work with the military and working with military men and women has been uh, just a way better experience ultimately than anything else, because there's the art be forgotten, everything be forgotten, you still have these great relationships that last a lifetime. So that's been the good thing about that.
That's funny you say that. On just a side note, it's one of the reasons I loved and wanted to have this podcast, because I call it Solutions. And I do two different versions because I have a Sunday one too. But it was just collaborating and meeting people in the communities and going to certain events. And I wasn't there to interview the politicians or the little bit more famous people. I wanted to interview the people that came, because I was just fascinated with different things of what people were doing. But it's brought me to this community where it's just so great that no matter what, I've been able to meet these people, meet people like you, and
Hmm.
and have these relationships, which I just find such a blessing. It's made my Fridays, I'll tell you that. You know?
Yeah, it is cool.
So,
It's cool to be able to have a career that leads you into people's lives, way beyond what you're doing there to begin with. So I've
right.
really enjoyed that.
So, I guess, I mean, what was your leap that you decided, because it was in your bio that in your 30s, and I was kind of the same age when I decided I was going to go back to school, because I was a chef before all of this life.
Ooh,
And
okay.
so, I mean, what inspired you to just say, okay, I'm going to live the dream. I'm just going to go for it.
Yeah. Well, uh, starting into military artwork, it was kind of a slow thing. So I think it was somebody suggested that I get into the Air Force art program, which the Air Force art program is kind of a startup in 1947 that was where the U.S. Army gifted 800 pieces of art to the Air Force, and then the Air Force started up their own art program, which everybody has their own art program. The Navy has their own, the Army, the Air Force, and the Coast Guard as well, and the Marine Corps, and it's all in Washington D.C. and it's buried deep underground, and so if you ever have the opportunity to go and tour some of those art programs, they're amazing. Because so anyway, it started there, and I think most of it was just meeting new people, and then slowly you just, oh, I'm working on this project, or I get to work on this project, and then one thing led to another. So um, it just kind of became a snowball effect. So that was a really good segue into doing art for a living, because I could get military commissions, which were generally higher paying jobs anyway. Um, and so it was very doable to say, hey, I could do this, as opposed to me maybe working for somebody else or something like that, which I've had many years of doing that too as well. And but then making that jump, I was working for a newspaper at the time, and the newspaper said, you guys are all going away. It was the newspaper industry was just kind of folding up its tent, and so I thought that was a perfect opportunity to, since we were getting, pensions and everything like that, to just, all right, I'm doing this now, and that's where I'm gonna, make my stand, I guess. So
Right.
that's kind of where I am at today. Even though it is a tremendous roller coaster, doing art for a living is can be frightening at times. There's spans of time where you don't know if you're going to get another job. You definitely have to work hard to, and I'll say this, that in a farmer's term, is you have to sow the field a lot, because if you want to raise corn, the only way you're going to get corn is if you planted a lot of corn. So with working in things like art, is you always have to remember don't forget about the hard work that you already did, because it's reasonable to expect some sort of rate of return from that. So, yeah, but it can be scary and it can be great at the same time. So,
Right. Right. Well, and I do that. I think, and there's different, and I can't wait. And I'll show everybody your website here in just a minute. There's different kinds of art too. And I can see why people love my art, but maybe don't want to buy it, because my stories that I do behind me are like on history, but they're not the most prettiest stories. And when you zoom in, you see some pretty graphic details, especially the one I did on rape culture. But there are stories I felt needed attention. So they'd love to be in a show. But maybe, you don't want to buy a picture that you're looking at, different versions of rape per se. So but it's different, because for me, it's a message. When I say that there's a difference, he does artwork that's so beautiful and so realistic that it floors me. I'm not a realistic kind of person. I'm more of an abstract. So when people say artists, there are just so many different ways that you can create art. But there's so many, and you sent me some today, and I have another like runner up, but there are some that I personally just love, and it's what I found. And so to be able to do that and commission that, because I don't even know if I'm a person that could take somebody's commission and do that, because I see it differently. As most artists do, but to be able to just take a commission and do something, I am so amazed by that. And he does it, and he does it really well, everyone. I mean, beyond belief. I don't know. Have you been a highlight on Truth? Because if you're not, you should be a highlight of theirs, coming up. You should definitely reach out to them, because they highlight. I don't know if everybody knows that they highlight as artists of the month, or a couple artists of the month. And it's a great feature about Truth Social. And I mean, I just, when I look at his different artists, I was like, oh my gosh. And I think I really saw yours around Easter. And that was probably what really resonated with me, because you did one on the Savior that just was, one of the best I've ever seen. And so I don't know if you know that, but that's my personal favorite one. It's like, wow.
Thank you.
Wow, everyone. So actually, while I'm talking about it, let me show everyone here. I'm going to share my screen so you guys can see what I'm looking at, and let's do his, just his website. There we go. I want you to see the top ones. Can everybody see that? Let me add that in. There we go. All right. It's the one on the left, the very one on the left, that I believe is the one I saw. Wasn't that the one or maybe you're just showing it off for Easter, accordingly, right? But it is so gentle and so beautiful. The light in itself, for me to do something like that is difficult, but that's your forte. And that's what makes different artists so wonderful. And they're right, because they have a different eye, a different technique that they can do. And it's just so realistic. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Absolutely beautiful. Can I ask, when did you actually create that painting per se?
It was a couple weeks before Easter. I thought, like, really? I'm not sure what, just
nice.
I've never really done anything like that before. So just recently doing things kind of in the, spiritual nature or anything like that is a new thing for me. So, but it was just, hey, I need to do this, so it was a couple weeks before Easter, and yeah, so.
That's amazing, because around the same time, in a different way, I'm doing it something totally different, but I got also inspired to do one on the Savior in my way, with like a history thing. And I'm like, okay, how do I do this and not disgrace him? Because I don't paint like that, I probably could. It might take a lot of practice over it. It's just not me. But just even to do that in a couple of weeks is amazing. How big is that painting?
It's 18 by 24.
Wow. So you guys, that's remarkable that he's able to do something which I consider just such a high level of detail in just a couple of weeks. And what is your medium, if you don't mind me asking?
Acrylic paint. Yeah.
See, and maybe that, I'm an oil painter, and if anybody knows anything about painting oil, waiting for it to dry to do the next layer is just tasking in itself. But I need more practice with acrylic. But I just never believed you could get that kind of in depth like you have with acrylics. And I obviously stand corrected, because a lot of people.
I think that anything that I've done good with acrylic paint has been purely by accident, because um, I never used anything else. And so
Okay.
when I first started painting, I just knew that I had to have something that was clean up fast, because I had young children, and I didn't,
Gotcha.
that was just the first thing that ran through my mind, was just, I need to clean this up fast, because I wasn't, I didn't have like a dedicated place to do art or anything like that. So so that was the first thing. But I started using it just as just mixing paint. Like, I just did it the way I wanted to do it. And I had another friend of mine who's an amazing painter as well. He lives real close to me, and he's an egg tempera painter. So he was, mixing watercolor with egg whites, and doing all of his paintings that way. And I tried that, but I just could not get into it. It was just too much labor involved in anything. It was too much to get started painting and getting going and everything like that. But he did that. And I have other friends that are, oil painters. And I always thought about, like, oh, I'm going to get into oil. I'm going to make the transition to oil. And every time I get there, I kind of realize that I'm not going to be able to make that happen. It's just not for me. So yeah, I guess I always used acrylic, kind of like maybe the same way you'd use, oil. But I guess I never really had any preconceived notions about, acrylic being the way it is and having limitations. I just didn't, limitations just weren't in my mind, I guess. So,
Right.
I don't know if that makes
And that's
sense.
a great. No, that totally makes sense. It just really, it's different for, I guess, each artist. And once you find what you just, I mean, as soon as you touch it, that's your medium. And it's really hard to explain to people, because I would fumble around with watercolors. I mean, charcoal, I could do. I hated like drawing and charcoals, which you
Hmm.
have drawings also that are phenomenal. But as soon as I touched the medium of oil, it was like a duck in water for me. I was like, oh, that's my medium, and it might
Hmm.
take me longer to do something, but I just felt at home in it, and it's so, but I love what you can do and what you've been able to do. I was trying to get your portfolio up here, and it was giving me troubles for some reason, but we finally got it up, to show off some of your aviation and your Star Wars, as well as I'm seeing here. I mean, just really great. So are these all acrylics, and the black and white, are they different?
Black and white's just pencil, just picking up a pencil and doing it. Um, and then everything that's in color is all acrylic. Um, the
Wow.
Star Wars thing was, I mean, I've always been a Star Wars fan,
Oh,
since I was a kid. And it's kind of largely like, Star Wars came out, and I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I think a lot of people did figure that out. Star Wars kind of put a professional culture into the mix too, as well. Um, but I didn't do anything, in Star Wars for a long time. And then it's probably only till more recent years I thought, oh, I want to do something with this. And I didn't want to just, do Star Wars art. I wanted to be an official Lucasfilm artist. So I had to figure that out. And I did. And then I quickly realized I didn't want to do that as well, because working for the mouse wasn't really that much fun. But I did do some work for Lucasfilm, and I'm proud of that. But
nice.
I'm fine not doing it anymore too, as well. So I did manage to sell one piece to George himself, so that's good on my
Really?
resume, and I can walk away and I'm okay.
That is phenomenal, actually. Wow. Which one is, I was just looking at this one with C3PO and R2D2, the detail. I'm like,
Mhm.
wow. So I don't know which one you sold to him, but that'd be hard to choose.
It was actually the first one of my first ones that I did, and I'm not so sure I really liked it too much
Okay.
myself. But apparently he did, so that's good. Because where that art goes. That scene at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark with that big warehouse.
Right.
That's where it's at.
Okay.
So it's in mixed in with a billion crates.
Awesome.
Anyway,
I mean, how interesting
funny.
is that? I mean, that's just such an accomplishment to be able to say that and have that on your resume. I mean,
Mhm.
you're absolutely right. Wow.
Yeah, it is. It is.
It's
It's a cool
really
thing, but
beautiful artwork here, everyone. I mean, the detail is unbelievable. You need to go to, I just want to tell you this. It's bryansnuffer.com. So BRYANSNUFFER.com. And we're going to tell you this again because it is just, I mean, you got to go. I mean, this is Top Gun. And I'm like, all right. I'm like, this just really beautiful. Have you, I mean, do they know that they have got such great drawing as well?
I tried reaching out to Paramount once
What
upon
do
a
you think?
time, but they didn't respond, and
Yeah, yeah, no.
I don't think they, I'm not so sure that they really care. Like, a lot of companies like Lucasfilm, they'll say that that you better watch out what you're doing because it's copyright infringement or whatever like that. I don't think that they really care because, at the end of the day, it's somebody that's promoting them, or there's just a lot more for them to be had than, if they have a lot of people playing in their sandbox for the
Right.
most part. So um, I don't think that, I tried to reach out to them. I tried to reach out to Major League Baseball one time, and I actually talked to them about doing Major League Baseball stuff, and um, they were kind of a huge discouragement. Actually, they
Yeah.
said, well, there's going to be a huge licensing fee every year that's going to come knocking on your door. It's like, you don't want that. And they also said you're also going to have to seek out permission and probably pay licensing fees to players as well. So
Okay.
you you if you're a company that is really looking to enjoying some really nice profits from something like that, then that might work out. But just a single artist by themselves, it's that would not be doable at all. So
Right.
you kind of learn some things, doing things like that. But for the most part, most of those companies like Paramount, even they're just big studios like that, they're not even going to really ever notice you,
Right.
whether you're, you know, drawing or painting images of their, content or anything like that. Even when you try to get noticed, you can't. So,
Right. Right.
anyway.
It's a hard world being an artist.
Mm.
I mean, like you said earlier too, I mean, you've got to be on it all the time, out there, get your name out, really, really promoting you because it's you and it's your
Mm.
work. And if you want it to be known or you want to be sold, this has to be a full-time effort to let people know you're out there because you're competing with a world now. It's not even just even your local area or before, because now with the internet and such an international, playing field, you are competing with people all over the world. It's
Right. You are,
right.
and there's wonderful, wonderful artists out there. Everybody. I mean, there's, I see people all the time that just their art is mind blowing to me, and they're just. But what kind of the thing I can't relate to is when somebody has something like really good like that going on, but they don't have any kind of desire to earn a living from it at all. And that's weird for me, even though I do understand that. I do know artists is like they're just totally into what they're doing. They aren't interested in making a dime off of what they're doing, and they certainly aren't interested in people commissioning them or anything. They just want to do what they want to do. And I think that that's great. But I think that I think most people have a creative inclination, and I think that there's so many great artists out there, and it's almost kind of a kind of a bummer when you can't see them, if they don't have really a knack for getting their work out for the world to see or anything like that too. So
And that kind of brings it, I even will say that that's probably part of even my own fault, is I don't know how to, because out of the university world, and I literally graduated in 2020, but inside that world, you almost have promoters for you. And so it was not, a big deal for me to headline at the New York City Library. In fact, they invited me, or to headline at the University for International Human Rights. I mean, I had so many shows, I couldn't even keep up with it. But then when you go out onto your own, to really know, besides knocking on your local museums or reaching out and sending emails, I mean, it's like, so where do you continue? This is something for me, even if I have other paintings besides this, but I am not familiar with, and then I have so many other things, but I do want to commit myself to selling my own work, but just don't know how.
Mm-hmm.
So you might want to think about collaboration or a class, even how do artists do this? Because I wouldn't even be able to tell you.
Yeah.
Social medias I use, but maybe I don't promote it enough. Or,
Yeah.
I mean, how do you get in front of enough people to say, okay, even
Yeah.
if you got 10% returning, at least, an email or a phone call or whatever, that would be lovely to know.
Right. Well, we talked about that earlier, is, about audiences and audience sizes and things like that.
Right.
And, I know artists that have, hundreds of thousands of people, looking at what they're doing. And if they're, they're monetizing their work in any way, shape, or form, they're probably enjoying a certain margin of that followership or that viewership, in the form of a paying customer. So, if you have so many people following you, it's reasonable to, if you're trying to monetize your work in some way or shape or form, it's reasonable to expect a rate of return, based on some facts, that you maybe have so many people that are looking at your work. A lot of people are plenty fine. And I say a large
Right.
percentage of people are plenty fine with, I see it on the internet and that I'm good. That I don't need to see it anymore. I got it posted on my Facebook page, or I saved it, I can look at it, and stuff like that. They're totally good. And then you have people that, they need to go beyond that. They want to collect something in a very tangible way. I'm thankful that, beyond my Lucasfilm years, I have collectors that still collect my work. So it's reasonable for me to, once I have so many paying customers, it's reasonable for me to start something new and believe that I'm going to have a certain rate of return on it, based on painting things that your audience is going to like.
Right.
So you're a little bit, as an artist, you're a little bit trapped there too, because you need to do something that your audience likes, but then
Right.
there's what you want to do too as well. So
Right.
it's like a hobby inside of a hobby.
Exactly. And I think about this too, because for me, it's not necessarily for me to make money. I even tell people on here too, on my show and stuff, that this would all go to support a student, because there's families out here who can't afford private school. But
Mm-hmm.
how awesome to have a piece of work, even from the students or from me, that goes to fund another child, so they can get a better education.
Sure.
And that's my new mission. So even talking to you about how to do this has really helped me earlier, because I'm like, I know what I need to do to promote pieces that maybe everybody likes, per se, that would bring money to families that might not be able to afford it. And I can have scholarships now, more
Yeah.
scholarships to that. So, it changes too with your drive or what you want to do with them. And of course, I don't want them to sit here forever, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe one or two. But I learned that earlier from you about learning your audience, making sure how many times you're posting it, how to gain more followers. And so it was really helpful for me. So I thank you for that,
Mm-hmm.
because my mission again is to help youth or nationwide, as many
Yeah.
as can, want to sign up.
Yeah.
So it's
There's
really
there's a
wonderful.
lot of kids that still, I still, we've homeschooled our kids all the way through. So, our last one will be done in 2 years.
Okay.
But there's a lot of kids that think that they want to be involved in some sort of art for a living. And that always really kind of blows me away, because maybe 20 years ago I would have thought, all right, that's awesome. And now I kind of think more like my dad is like, are you sure?
Right.
Because you got to be careful what you wish for too.
Right.
Um,
Somebody just asked me too, because we're art integrated school, and she's actually rebranding our website, but she's like, explain that to me. What does that look like? Does that look like everybody's just painting? And I went over 30 different things that we did. And she was like, I'm sorry, what? Down to color theory and recycled materials, or doing different kinds of actual physical clay of your skeletons and things like that. So even though we're doing something art, but it's from advertising, creating, ads, and building food truck businesses. And that she was just like, art, what is going on here? And I go, it's not just painting. Art integration has a different way to educate these kids and give them a project with their hands besides just creating. I mean, it can be anywhere from sculpture to mathematics to science and pictures and photography through microscopes, to music. I mean, there's just so many different aspects to this that she was just blown away and didn't think that parents would even understand, or maybe would have thought we're just sitting here with color crayons. But art, even going to school and in college, art was the biggest field. There were 16 different majors underneath the arts and humanities. From architecture to advertising to mathematics to sciences. I mean, even NASA has an art program. The first time I heard about military and the art was them when they went to go find the pictures that the paintings that Hitler took, right? They had a huge regiment. I mean, maybe not huge, but maybe like 8 of them that went across Europe, literally saving artwork.
Yeah.
So
oh, sure. Yeah.
it's everywhere,
Yeah.
I mean, engineering is another one. It's huge for artwork. So it just, it's really interesting how it just changes these kids, but it gives them something to do and helps them retain the information you're trying to teach. And they go really hand in hand. So, I'm thrilled to be doing that. But, the kids too, when it's kind of like the sports, like you said, when somebody wants to be a sports major, I always go, what's your plan B? Because until you get out there and make it as an artist, you still got to pay the bills. So I tell my students who want to be a sports major, I was like, so what's your plan B? And they say, what do you mean? I go, you should at least get a business degree, even if it's your associates, because you're going to be spending all this money. Who's going to be managing it? How are you going to be able to even financially figure this out? And they're like, huh, right? I mean, and it doesn't hurt you to do something while you're trying to make it, in this field. I think art's one of those fields that it takes so much time to get your name out there that it's not, not a bad idea to think of something else as a B plan as well. But
that was something that I, as from a career level, I always wanted to be able to say I was a full-time artist. I just thought,
right,
that's the cat's pajamas, Now, my thought processes change all the time. You can still say that you are, but you don't have to be. That doesn't have to be your sole source of income, just because that's what you are. There's difference between what you do and what you are and who you are. Where is if who you are is an artist, or what you are is an artist, or you say you're a full-time artist, it doesn't matter whether you get all of your income relegated from that, particular career field or not. And a lot of times I think that artists are just like you're saying. I think that, when you say, what is your plan B? I think that the more attention you give to a plan B, your plan A does suffer. But at the same time, you can still do something else while you're working on that only plan. If something like art, or if you want to become a musician, or if you want to, if you're working towards a certain field of engineering or something, you may have had part-time jobs while you get to that. That's still what you want to do. It's still what you are, still who you are. It's just may not be always what you get your income from life from necessarily, but it doesn't change, it doesn't change those things. So those are things that I had to learn. And I feel terrible that it takes me so long in life to learn those things. I feel like I'm always kind of just barely surviving some level of immaturity in my life. But I can be very naive too about some things too. So I always thought, well, this is just the way it is, and that's what I'm going to do. And but I don't take into consideration all this other stuff like, hey, you could have a part-time job and it's okay while you work on this project or something like that. And So I think that just, you know, there's always too many pressure on kids to think of like, well, what are you going to be when you grow up?
Right.
Well, I'm going to be nothing. Or
Well,
I don't want to
and
do
then,
it. You know, I had
right.
breakfast with a friend of mine. He's a furniture designer, great furniture designer, and he's about my age. And he said to me, he goes, I want to figure out how I can do more nothing every day. And I just said, well, just quit. You can quit. You know, a lot of people quit smoking. You can quit furniture design. And then but he also teaches a class at a local college, a local art college, which was started out in the early 1900s as a furniture design school in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And he teaches a class of like, so you're a great artist and you got this degree. What are you going to do now? You know, because most colleges are not going to,
No.
instill in their students, you can paint, you're a musician, you're great at it. Now what are you going to do if this is what you're going to make money at? How are you going to go about doing that?
Right.
And that's where a lot of it is 90% of it just goes south because we don't know how to get what we want to do to
Right.
some form of income. So
I love that. I love that. I wish they would do that. One of the reasons I started again my own school is because they were not teaching this in public schools. Like the kids would say, I don't even know how to balance a budget. I mean, how much is it for bills? They didn't know how to go to a trade school and find scholarships. They didn't know how to, just even move forward.
yeah.
And then here I am with my master's, still not even knowing. And one of my degrees is in art and still not even knowing how to advertise my own self.
Mm-hmm.
And I am so thrilled to hear that at least there's some colleges out there that are doing that.
Yeah, I don't think that they're completely without doing that. I'm not saying that every college is going to, take all your money and now you're a great artist and you're an artist now because you just got a degree in it and, hit the bricks. And, and then then you go do something else because it doesn't, nothing makes sense or anything like that. So I think it's hard for, most students and anybody who wants to somehow make a living from their passion. There has to be, some sort of unveiling of knowledge of, this, you can't take a pill and this is going to all work out well in the end. You're going to work really hard. And when you've worked really hard one day, you're going to see some fruit from it. But most people think it's like, well, it's just going to shower down on me because I've got a degree now.
Right.
I don't think that that's really the case. So
no, and I think our young kids too, like you made a point about, I have to be this one thing. I mean, since I have been young, I have been in the restaurant business, like I said, for over 20 something years, from bartender up to chef. Now I've gone through all this education. I'm an educator. Now I'm into media. I mean, you don't have this one thing that you ever do. Life hits you. And sometimes, you lose a job and you have to figure out, okay, how do I start again with something different?
right.
I mean, 2020 hit a lot of people and a lot of people left their jobs, over certain decisions, and they had to start something completely over or brand new to support their families. So you never just have one thing. You could be, multiple things at once, or you have multiple different jobs in your life. But, you definitely made a great point there as well.
Yeah.
Well, let's show you off again because he's got 3 new paintings that he sent to me today. And you want to tell us the titles of this?
This one's just tell a real quick story. This one is called Grinder. This young lady, that was her call sign. She was a first year instructor at Laughlin Air Force Base. They train Air Force pilots, and she was called her call sign was given to her because somehow she managed to land an aircraft and ground the rear wheel off of the back end of it. And so, of course, call signs are given to you basically a culmination of your greatest failures, and they are not really something that you like to hear about yourself. Right. So that was her call sign. So anyway, I was there at Laughlin Air Force Base for a graduating class, and my friend was getting ready to go on a flight with her, and she's watching him prepare the back seat for his flight, and she's kind of like looking like, yeah, you're all right there, you know what you're doing. So
Right.
anyway, I just thought that was a great painting. So it's in the Pentagon now, so it's a good thing.
Oh, that is awesome. That's beautiful.
Thank
Very
you.
beautiful. All right. The next one.
Nah.
Okay, I think there's no real explanation needed for this one. Tell us the story about this one.
Oh, this was
I mean, I say
one.
that because I think we all know who this is, but
Yeah,
tell us the
this was
story.
can I paint it in 2 hours painting?
Wow.
So I
Speed
succeeded.
painting.
I got it done in 2 hours. But it was fun. It was my Lucasfilm connection wanted to have the painting in to do prints and stuff like that, and I just thought, nah, let's not do that. And so I ended up selling it later on, but it was really fun. It's like how fast can I do this? That's a dumb thought, but
No, it's
I
like
just
the
thought
latest
I just had a
thing.
little challenge for myself. Is that I mean, just like I'm going to paint this painting in 2 hours, and that's all you get. So
I had a few weeks back, maybe a month ago. She's another famous painter, Vanessa. I Onabwana, and I had her two assistants on, and they are going through an internship learning how to be a speed painter.
oh,
And
okay,
she did the famous painting of, well, it's famous now, but I think Mike Lindell had it behind him, and it was Christ and the Lion.
oh sure,
And she does this in like an hour, and I'm like, what?
yeah.
It takes me weeks to do a painting, everyone. And so I am amazed at this new thing of speed painting. And I'm like, okay, I still got to challenge myself to see if I could do, but oils are again a different.
Hmm.
Um, but that just blows me away that this is done in 2 hours.
Well,
This is
I'm
the
not,
way.
and I'm
What
not. I
type
wouldn't
of
say that
paper is yours?
I wasn't like I'm not a speed painter. I still have to find something that's doable in that kind of time.
Right, but
Um,
this,
but
um,
it's just I would do things like that, like I sit down and like, okay, I want to accomplish a painting in a half hour tonight. So I would
um,
pick something that I thought that was reasonable to expect, but I wouldn't say that I'm a super fast painter necessarily, even though, like some of the military stuff I have 2 weeks to get it done and that's it. So,
okay,
I would have to find ways of being fast, and most of it is just work your rear end off until it's done. That's all there is to it.
right.
And um, but I still wouldn't think that somebody like who you're talking about there, I wouldn't be able to compete with something like that just because
Right.
I don't know how to paint that fast necessarily.
Right. It's just different. But still, I would not be able to see me doing something even like this in a couple of hours. But I am, like I said, it's different the way I paint. I'm more of like a glazer. So
Mhm.
even when I do skin, it's different colors of oils that I literally let glaze. And I
Sure.
mean, it just well. But I'm like, I really got to dabble with acrylics again because you guys are inspiring the heck out of me. And that
Well,
is my second
the thing that's
favorite
nice about
painting.
acrylic is
Yeah,
it dries like lightning fast if you want it to,
right,
so you can
right.
move on. And
And is that horrible? My two favorite paintings from you are of Christ and Darth Vader. But
ah,
Star Wars has a huge connection with me too.
yeah,
Right? I'm that same age. I'm 50. I remember these things. I remember going to the shows and stuff, and I really love
yeah.
Star Wars movies. So
Oh, sure,
love
right.
that. And this one, I'm assuming is a drawing by pencil.
Yes,
Oh,
yeah.
very done. Very nice.
It is
Very
in the um, True Social headquarters at the moment.
nice.
Um,
That is phenomenal. And
yeah,
I don't
it's a
know
lot of
if
fun.
President Trump has seen your work. I'd imagine he has by now.
I don't know. It's gotten me into a load of trouble with people, although for sure definitely think that I've lost some business over it, but I feel very compelled to to draw him. I think there's a lot to there's a lot to this time in history, and I think that he's kind of like the hood ornament on the bullet train.
Yeah. Well, even if some people don't like it, there is a huge following that do. And you're an
Mhm.
artist
Mhm.
that's trying to, not only survive full time on this, but there's a big clientele for this.
Sure. I think that's true too. I'm just, I'm transitioning from a clientele that's kind of gone quiet to, to something new. And it's kind of like starting a new job. My kids are always saying, it's like, Dad, why don't you just try painting something else different than airplanes all the time? Like, well, that's like getting a new job. You
Right.
really are, because you have to redevelop a new audience for that. And it's not that, it's not that my military audience, they really like the Star Wars. So that didn't not make sense to them or anything like that. But if I wanted to sell it, then you almost have to make it a career a little bit too, because you can't, you can't do just one painting, because the first thing that goes through any human's mind is, what else have you done? So, uh, so you have to do a fleet of things in order to say, yeah, I do this,
Right.
or I've got more than one, or I've
Right.
done more than one thing, or anything, something like that. Um, so anytime I like go down that road with stuff, it's always like a kind of an investment, like with, things with wings, I'm careful about calling them angels now, because I get a lot of poop about that. Um,
That
but
crazy.
the
Right.
angel thing is I've committed to doing so many of them, and then I'm going to do that. And
Yeah.
um and it's been a great thing so far, but it's also like, I get a lot of people, angels don't have boobs, and all kinds of that kind of stuff. And sorry about that. um
Right, but no, it's fine. I mean, but isn't that
yeah,
you get the craziest things, but it's like, you don't know that f you don't know that for sure, and people assume
yeah,
that there's I assume that
yeah,
there are female or male angels, or what
yeah.
about our loved ones that pass on?
And mainly it's I think that the point that's being missed of, like, there's a metaphor that I'm working on here, and it's not just about, exact, because I can't say that I've never seen an angel. I don't know that I have. And so I can't honestly say I know what they look like or anything like that. Could they look like everybody else? Sure. Why not? Um, but they could also look like what they look like too, as well. And I don't know what that looks like. Uh,
Right,
um, but I'm going to do them anyway. And they're basically metaphors out of my own imagination of, like, okay, this is maybe what vengeance looks like, or,
right,
what does the Lord's vengeance look like, as far as like Washington, D.C. goes? What does that look like? What strikes fear into, that kind of stuff
mhm.
and I want a metaphor for that kind of thing. So I think some people get a little hung up on, like, that they're missing that point a little bit. Um, but it's a small part of the audience, I guess. And, you know,
But obviously it's still working because your work is phenomenal and you're making a living at it, and I'm right, you're obviously reaching people that love your work, and we're gonna reach more. I mean, it's just so awesome. It makes my day. Excuse me. I've been talking all day. It makes my day to promote another artist. It just kind of makes me giddy, and it also inspires me. Whenever I have an artist on, I always find myself after the show, I'm on my canvas doing something because it's talking to my kin basically,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. It's fun.
And I love your work. It's
Thank
so
you.
inspiring. What would you say to anybody out there that's in this field that maybe is just, I don't know, nervous about going forward, or maybe they are getting criticism? Just what are your words of wisdom to them?
I would say, to ignore the criticism. I had a first year college professor tell me to give up. It's like,
Mhm.
don't bother. And I'm just like, that just actually kind of made me mad. Like,
Right.
I'm gonna do this now just to spite you. Um, but I think that you just got to not listen to that. Listen to your own heart, and then work really hard. I mean, I think that anytime you can look back on anybody's success, you can take celebrities or whatever. All of them have the same story. I worked really hard, and or maybe there's a musician that you like, and they're extraordinarily doing extraordinarily well or whatever. Um, there's a story there, and the really sad thing is that some people, a lot of people, maybe when we're younger, we think, well, I work really hard. I should have all that, or I want all of that. I think what you're doing is you're taking the journey from where you're at now to the end, and you're squishing it all down into one big piece, and you're missing the best part of the whole thing, which is the gooey middle of it. And that's, learning to be whatever it is you want to be. If you're being an artist, you're being a musician, you're going to be a painter, you're going to be a sculptor, or, maybe you're just going to be an engineer, you're going to be a mathematics teacher or something like that. There's hard work. And if you want to do really well at it, you have this middle part of the journey that's really great. And even though you're not at the end of it, that's the best part. So
Right.
that's what I would say.
Always love the journey. I mean, it's up and down, but I always love the journey.
Hmm.
Everyone, just so you can see, we've had his website up here. But you can literally go to briansnuffer.com to see his beautiful artwork. And I don't know what other social media you're on besides Truth. If you want to tell people how to find you, I'm sure you're on everything. If you could give them out maybe your tags so they can find you and follow you.
Sure. I'm on Truth, and I'm on Facebook. I don't really go to Facebook so much anymore. So I'm more mostly on Truth. So if you're on Truth, you can search me out there. I do have an Instagram, however, I don't really post to it. So not terribly excited about that platform either.
Right, either.
But it's just basically mostly my website and Truth is going to be largely where I'm putting all my stuff on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody, again, that's Brian with a Y, BryanSnuffer.com. His work is just, I find, absolutely amazing and phenomenal, and help him out. If you got questions, I'm sure that he would reach out to you about ideas. He definitely helped me today with ideas of going forward, how to get more awareness, how to get more followers, even, promoting it, just even simple things they've told me about. Make sure you're promoting yourself every day, or maybe even, more than one time a day. I mean, it was just really great advice. And I forget that because I'm so busy doing other things that you forget, and that doesn't take but a second to do, right? So, I mean, and we've got to collaborate with each other, support each other, because that's what makes our nation so great. It's by having all these different businesses, and we just lift each other up and support each other. And I love doing that. I love having you on. I don't know if there's anything else you would love to say to our guests, but this would be the time. If you got any specials or promotions or something coming up, you could share that.
I do. I have a 25% off on my website for the Memorial Day weekend. So it's just all caps, Memorial 25 at checkout, get you 25% off, things like that. But I really appreciate you having me on. It's been a privilege, and I'm very thankful for people like you that we can share our stuff and our lives and everything like that. And so I appreciate your hard work there, because doing things that you're doing right now, that wouldn't be so easy for me. So I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. My husband told me forever I need to be on a podcast. I'm like, really? Me? Why? And it was so nice to get that invite. And I guess that was a sign, that I should have one. But, I really believe in the Father above. And I say prayer before every show.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I'm here to highlight your children. And I do something totally different every show. It's showing off somebody else.
Yeah.
I might bring up my school here because we have things in common, and the youth are very, very important to me.
Mhm.
But it's really to promote you and to have collaborations. I have different artists now that are collaborating and coming up with different shows together. I'll be more than happy to, give you their information after the show.
Mhm.
And they're going to these different events, and rallies and stuff like that, where they're being promoted and seen.
Mhm.
And I'd love to introduce you to that little group. I've had authors collaborate with people that have platforms for audio and digital readings, because Amazon is blocking certain books or something. So it's so exciting for me to get everybody, kind of like, do you know this person, and be able to highlight you. So it really makes my day.
Yeah. Well, because of Truth, I am working on a book right now, with an author that is on Truth, and
Okay.
it's going to prove to be like a year-long project. So that's kind of a really cool thing. I would have never probably been able to do that. I've done book covers and things like that before,
Right.
but
Right.
not a whole book, and especially not a book about Donald Trump. So that's going to be a really fun project. And
Nice.
I just feel like Truth has kind of given me a little bit of a second chance, because
Nice.
Facebook was just at
They're
least for
horrid.
me, not being a really great thing. So
Yeah. Sorry to my Facebook friends out there that are listening. I'm so glad you're here with us. But I mean, my school has been literally suspended or, off of there 4 different times, even with paying for advertisements.
Mhm.
So it's not really, our friends if you're on a certain side of things. And I'm sorry that it's not that free. And hopefully they decide to change that someday. But, we are streaming on Facebook. So, please go out and find Brian there and support him and make the awareness, and make Facebook, change their ways. We'd love to have them part of our lives again and say, hey, here we are and connect with our family and friends. But they're not always the most friendliest. But I love truth as well too, and it's so great, and I can't wait to just collaborate. I bugged him like crazy. Please come on, please come on. But I'm hoping for great things. It's such an amazing. I had a professor once do a book, the images for a book, but they were trying to write down the Navajo language, which is not written because their youth are not learning the language. So an author was writing the book in Navajo and he was doing the artwork for it. And that collaboration was so much fun, he said.
yeah,
So I'm excited to see the book that you do,
yeah, yeah. Well, it'll be really fun. So if you stay tuned, I have a group on Truth called Patriot Made.
Okay.
So, if people go there and look and search for that group, we're just trying to, promote people that are on Truth that, maybe they've got a product that they make. I know there are people that make all kinds of great things, and they may be homemade, or they may be they're just made here in the U.S. and
Okay.
people want to get their stuff out there. So that group is for that, and it's just starting out, so it's kind of tiny at this
Well,
point, but that's okay.
expect me to ask because I'm going to want to be on there for both me and my school because I
Mhm.
love these groups. It's a great new feature they have.
Yeah, it is. It is awesome, and so they're growing, and
Nice.
we'll
Right.
I'm
And
doing better there
hopefully
than I think.
I can get other people to highlight as well too because I love it. I love what we're doing in our communities. They
Yeah,
don't want to share us on the regular news, so we got to do it for them.
right. Exactly. Yeah.
Nice. Nice. Thank you so much for being on. I hope you have a great weekend and I will and thanks for letting me bug you. You're
Oh,
always welcome back on. When you've
oh,
got new art and you want
thanks
to
a
show
lot.
it off, just let me know and we'll have you back on.
All right.
To promote your book for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah. For
Okay?
sure. When that becomes a thing, we get to the point. I mean, even as the book is, we're just working on the cover at the moment, so we're really
Okay.
trying to pour a lot into that and making sure that it's just the right thing. And then we're going to do an unveiling of the cover, and that's where we're going to do, a little bit of fundraising to, hey, would you like to get a signed book early or whatever like
Okay.
that? We can do that stuff there, and that helps, run the process along too.
Yeah, you can always come back on here too and even mention the fundraising link. Even if you just come on for 10, 15 minutes to promote that,
Yeah,
you're
yeah, I
welcome.
appreciate that.
Anytime,
Yeah,
anytime. And then if you need a publisher or who wants to put it on digital and audio, I'll let you know him too, because I'm telling you the collaborations that are going on, it makes
for
my
sure.
heart just sing. So
Yeah,
anything we can do to help you.
that's awesome.
All right.
Thank
I
you
hope
so
you have
much.
the greatest night. Everyone, please, please go check him out. Support him, briansnuffer.com. And thank you, sir. Have a great night.
Thank you.
All right. Bye. All right. I am so excited. I mean, his work is just phenomenal. So it's time to get to a sponsor before our next guest. And you guys know I love honey. You know that I use it on Sundays and when I do our solutions when I'm actually cooking with you and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But I'm just showing you my favorite. You guys can see it's my I love my turmeric honey. And you can see how much I use it. But this truly is like my favorite honey that I've ever tried. And you guys know I like my orange blossom and stuff like this. But this honey that comes out of Maui from our producer's area is literally some of the best honey I've ever had. And I keep just saying that, but I have to say it's truly that I've tried the world's best honey. And I'm so thankful to use it. But if you shop with them, you get 22% off by using the code Liberty. So please go check it out. Not only it is going to be great honey, The turmeric blew my mind, and I use it so much for healing and inflammation and all kinds of things. But it's a great way to also help us out so we can continue to bring these different shows to you every day, which we love doing. And you know how much I love to bring you guys on to promote who you are. So with that being said, let me play that. Be nourished, everyone.
Honey. It's one of the greatest gifts to man. With millions of wildflowers in every bottle, the nourishing power of honey is still yet to be fully discovered. Be Nourished Healing Products combines healing ingredients from around the planet to the purest honey from the island of Maui to bring magic to your taste buds. The best honey from the most beautiful place to nourish your body, mind, and soul. From our hearts to yours, be nourished.
Phenomenal honey, everyone. I promise you will not be disappointed, and you need to try it. It's absolutely just my favorite honeys in the world, and I'm so thrilled. Thank you to our wonderful sponsors. Another way that you can help support this show, I mentioned earlier, you can definitely buy me a coffee. .com/Scott Adams. That's our producer, Scott Adams. Okay. And another way too, if you really want to help support the youth, we would love that here at my school at Hamilton Liberty Academy. We're working hard to update our website, put out some more scholarships for students and families, even though our tuition is extremely low. But I love it. Our students make our ads for us, and we would really could use your help. So that being said, and even if you have students and teens that need a different program to find pathways forward, and I'm going to talk about this more after the next guest we have, so you can see how we're different and how we're helping our teens. But please, if you'd like a way to check us out or sponsor us, go to Hamilton Liberty Academy, and you can find it under donations, and you can do that Cash App at Hamilton Liberty. We have a gift send and go, or you can even buy artwork, and we would definitely appreciate that. But this is one of our students' commercials. Thank you. Talk about speed painting. That young lady did that in just a few minutes. I mean, she recorded that advertisement, created that advertisement, and drew that in just record time. I couldn't be more thrilled over that. She did an amazing job. So again, there's multiple ways, whether we're the school for you or you want to donate, we would sure appreciate that. I'm going to show you our next guest. She had a conflict with coming with today, so I had to pre-record our video. But I wanted to share with you her website before and after so that you guys can find that. Let me just add this to our stream here so you can see. There we go. All right. She is known as the Dissident Teacher. You can find her on Substack. So it's educatedandfree.substack.com. And you will see the Dissident Teacher. This teacher is amazing. It's somebody that I follow and found I love on Twitter. And I love that she is spending so much time, and you'll hear from her today, how we're fighting for our youth, what's going on in our schools, what parents can do, and just really love what she posts, love how, how much she's involved with fighting for our families and our youth and their education. And it was a true honor to interview her today. So I'm going to add that to the stream. And I'll be able to chat with you during the video because it's a pre-recorded video. And I will show you again her website after the video. So enjoy. Hi, everyone. This is Lady Hamilton, and I have an amazing guest. I'm so excited to have her on my show. She's called the Dissident Teacher. The Dissident Teacher, she's actual classroom teacher with 21 years of experience in California schools, from the lowest performing to the highest. Her focus on helping parents and the occasional teacher see the systemic incentives and that undermine the purpose of public schools, for which we all pay so dearly, especially our kids. You can see more of her work. She's on Substack, and it's going to be substack.com/educateandfree. Or you can follow her salty tweets at educateandfree. I'm so excited to welcome her.
Hi guys, it's actually, sorry to correct you, but it's educated and free.
Okay.
So, because I just want people to recognize that, I think it's an Epictetus who said, only the educated are free. And so that's where I'm coming from always. I'm really trying to fight for you to find a way to truly educate your child in a way that is meaningful and that will make the best use of their gifts and all the things that you're trying to teach them at home as a family.
Right. I agree so much. And, let me decide that. There we go. So I just moved the chat thing over. If you want to chat with me, sorry, but it's so true. Right. It's so true about educated and free. In fact, I love Ayn Rand for the same thing. It's one of the first people that we read, and they awesome about donating her books and so forth. Mm-hmm. But it was amazing just to read her stories, being a Russian immigrant and coming here and write that. And she says the same thing all the time, and in quotes and stuff for the foundation about an educated mind, a critical thinking mind, right? And how that will actually gain you freedom. Mm-hmm. So I love that. But everyone, I found the Dissident Teacher on Twitter. Okay, so you guys know, maybe you don't know, but I am new again to Twitter because they keep suspending me. They were suspending my school for so long, and I was going underneath our school that I decided to go underneath with, especially since I've had a podcast, to go underneath Lady Hamilton Art. So you can find me there, but I'm new to Twitter and gaining followers, but I'm still going after educated minds, people that are seeing the problems and people that are posting stuff about the problems, bringing solutions. As you guys know, that I'm all about different solutions and what we're doing in our communities. So I started probably, I don't know, bugging her like crazy, but I was like, just reposting stuff that she was saying because it's so critical right now. And we see this all throughout our nation. Our kids' scores are beyond decades behind. They're confused. They're killing themselves. Our teens are killing themselves at double the rates now. They don't feel like there's any pathway forward for them, whether it's college, trade school, or even building their own business. You know that I've built my school to help the situation, but I love to follow people that are like-minded, that are out there, that are truly concerned about our youth. So I hope you know that I wasn't trying to troll you, but I really appreciate your Twitter posts and you bringing attention to this.
Yeah, I think, the stats alone are horrifying. The number of students who literally can't read at grade level. I think I just read this to my own classes. It's something like 50% of Americans read at a 6th grade or below level. So that's adults.
Right.
So we are all victims. I don't want to make us all victims. How about this? We have all been used by the public schools, including I'm, 44. And I know my education, I didn't think it was terrible, but I remember being able to, where I really got my education was I constantly read books under the desk. Like I had a big old book and I had it under my desk. I don't know how you hide, I was an idiot. You don't hide a book under the desk, but probably my teachers just left me alone. And they're like, okay, well, she's reading a book, so maybe I shouldn't complain too much. And this is obviously before, cell phones and social media. But I would ignore my teachers and still get A's.
Right.
So how does that happen? Right? It's not because I was reading books under the desk on their content. It was that it wasn't challenging, and it wasn't, or I already learned it, and so I'm just repeating it, and I don't really need this. And I think for me, if you want to bring it down to brass tacks, I am, as I said, I'm 44, I'm middle-aged, and I'm staring death in the face, as we all do as literature and history teachers every day. We stare death in the face, right? But I recognize that time is our most valuable, most precious resource. And once you waste it, you can't have it back. And once you lose your childhood, it's over. Like you have to grow up, and you can pretend and live in mom's basement and, play Call of Duty all night long, but you will feel the pain of those decisions. And some of those decisions are not being made by you. They're being made by the school on your behalf, because what they've done, and I think this speaks to your earlier point, I really feel that this word is important. And I hope more parents will use this word, unmoored. Like, you have no anchor. You are adrift. These kids are adrift. This is why we see the rise in drug use. We see the rise in depression. They don't even know if they're boys or girls anymore.
Right.
They, like, basic identity has been taken from them. And I think in order to know who you are, there have to be touchstones in your life. There have to be guideposts. And when all the guideposts can point in any direction, like you're living in, Alice in Wonderland, when you've gone through the mirror and everything's screwed up, like, oh, that's actually interesting now that I said that. He went through the mirror, which means, like, if you go through a mirror, you're looking at yourself. So you're maybe too self-focused. Maybe that's part of this problem, right? Is that all of our constant narcissism and social media constantly turning us towards ourselves and thinking about ourselves. But what it does to kids is it doesn't give them a foundation. So they're just floating around. They don't know anything. Everything in school is about how they feel now and what they think they might be, but they're not sure who they are. And there's no facts, and everyone's truth is relative. And what that does is create such deep uncertainty and confusion in children when they don't even know basic facts about their country or their culture. Like, what is that going to do to your sense of identity and who you are and your ability to navigate problems if you don't know if any solutions are good? Because we can't judge anything, because that's someone's, this is so annoying because it's, what is that? It's redundant. My lived experience. Like, yeah, you lived, so you have an experience. Just, it's your experience, but whatever. That's just me being an annoying English teacher. But I just think that we need to give these kids back a mooring, a place where they can lock in and say, this is true. This is not true. This is good. This is not good. This is beautiful. This is not beautiful. And until we give those kids back the right to categorize things in that way, and the knowledge base upon which to base those judgments, you're going to keep seeing things get worse for kids mentally and health-wise, and then academically. Because if you're not in a solid mental state, you can't learn. It's impossible.
Right.
You're too stressed.
You're absolutely right. I mean, some things I've seen, for example, too, especially, in my education and my training, middle school in general, right, around that preteen, teen, early teen age, that's when your body is going through all kinds of changes and you're already completely confused. So if we can mess and give you an identity crisis in the middle of that time, we're going to even bring you down more, make you even more psychologically vulnerable. And let's just say we're going to throw a whole bunch of medication on that, whether, it's ADHD medication or it's puberty blockers or whatever, so you don't even experience that, and then tell you can just base everything on your emotions. Just do anything based off your emotions. I mean, that's not even realistic as an adult at all. You should never, ever make a decision on your life, especially something that's going to affect your life forever based off of an emotional response. It should be something that's critically thought about, but they don't know these skills because they take them away. They confuse them. And we wonder why they're killing themselves. They don't see futures.
Yeah. Well, and you add all the stress attendant to school and the bullying,
it's horrid.
which is just a whole new level of bullying because of social media. And, like, it used to be when you and I were in school and we were bullied, like, we only had one class with that kid, or maybe two at the most. And you could ask the teacher to sit somewhere else. And usually a teacher would understand and move you. And then once you went home, you were fine. Like, no one's going to bug you. But now if your kid has a smartphone, they can be constantly texted. And sometimes, like, I've seen this at some of the bigger high schools I worked at, where, yeah, you'll block one girl, but then she'll tell her friend who you haven't blocked yet to start harassing you. Right. So, like, you basically have to have everything on private and approved only, but then that locks you out of society because our society is increasingly digital. It's less and less face to face. So you have all these attendant stressors. And then on top of that, we have a real, even if you're not, so even for, like, I worked in very poor schools as well, those kids are self-medicating, and they're doing it two ways. It's either easily accessible drugs like pot, and, some of the, like, more common, like, unfortunately, fentanyl is one of those, right? Like, you can get access to that pretty easily. Although I would say most kids aren't using that. Maybe their older brothers and sisters, and sometimes parents would be involved with stuff like that. But they're drinking. And then also, I would argue that there's a lot of self-medicating through food. And so we see the rise. Like it's hard for me to see. I grew up and I struggled with my weight when I was a kid, and I still do to a certain extent. I think that kind of always stays with you, especially as a woman. But like I see these girls and they're so unhealthy, and I see these boys and you can tell they're just inactive. Like they don't
Mhm.
run. They don't they don't do anything physical that lets them know my body is powerful. Like
Right.
I have strength. I can do hard things. They're not having those experiences anymore. And then they're slipping farther and farther into social media. And then on top of that, they're self-medicating in some way. And so you basically, again, that's the unmooring, right? They don't live in reality. There
Right.
is no reality for them. So if you do decide to take that, I mean, obviously the tragic and horrible decision, what's the point of being alive? I mean, it makes rational sense. Like
Unfortunately.
reality, yeah, I spend all my time outside of reality, and when I'm in reality, I'm victimized not only by other kids, but even by the system itself, which I'm
Right.
sure you want to talk about. Is like the educational system doesn't do anybody any favors. It slows down the fast kids. It's too fast for the slow kids. It grades everyone and classifies everyone with a label that's really honestly unfair. It doesn't give kids the opportunity to grow in knowledge, because now we're in a post-fact, post-truth world, right? And you have teachers who aren't content experts. I mean, like I could go on and on, but the system itself is built. I think the only real goals of the system are to keep kids conformist and compliant. And the way you do that, the best way to do that is keep them insecure, because
I agree.
I'm going to conform. If it just keep things calm and keep the peace, then I'll just conform. I'll just do what everyone else is doing. And if you tell me to do something, I know that if I comply with it, I'm not going to get any heat or pushback. So they're basically being trained constantly. If you want to feel safe,
Right.
then you need to conform and comply. Whether you learn anything, we don't care that much. But as long as you conform and comply, we'll make sure we'll protect you. That's how you're going to get protected.
Mm-hmm. And rewarded.
Mm-hmm.
And rewarded, because how many kids are just passed? I mean, we might have saw this with COVID, or parents might have saw this with COVID, but I saw this before, and I'm sure you have too, where we're
Mm-hmm.
just going to pass you. We're going to give you a P, or we're just going to give you that D just to get you to continue going, instead of actually letting you explore failure. I mean, in my school, I love it when kids fail, and I'm not talking an F fail, but let's say we do a science experiment and it doesn't work. I'm always, yeah, that failed. And they think I'm crazy, because that gives me a chance to say, so how are we going to fix that? How are we going to make
Mm-hmm.
that work? And then we work together to go back and fix it. But if
Yeah.
we just give everybody a trophy, or we just pass
Mm-hmm.
everybody, they've learned again to comply, and they'll get rewarded. And they
Mm-hmm.
think it's a reward until they get in the real world. And then they
Mm-hmm.
find out, oh my gosh, I know nothing. And
Yeah.
and
And
believe it or not, they're terrified. I don't
yeah,
know what
well,
grade
of
level
course
you
they,
taught, but I
I've
taught
taught
11th and
7 through
12th
12.
graders.
Yeah.
They were
Yeah.
terrified about what their next step was. And
Mm-hmm.
do I even have a possibility to succeed in life?
Mm-hmm.
And you're
Yeah.
like, what?
Yeah, they
Good.
don't know. They literally, and they'll say things like, well, I need to know taxes. And I'd be like, no, you need to know how to read. If you
Right.
can read, you can figure all this stuff out. But guess what? We've eliminated from school now?
Yes.
Reading. Like
Right.
basically everything is online, everything is cheatable. Chat GPT, I don't want to say I'm against necessarily, but I think you can't, I believe you can't send home essay assignments anymore. Like, yeah, I think that, to me, essays are the most valuable assessment you can have, because it helps the kid know what they don't know. Because once they start writing, they're like, oh yeah, I don't actually know that. I'm faking all of this. And then they have to go back and relearn it, or at least look at it again. But you have to do that in class now. Like you cannot send an essay home, which I'm okay with that. I think that's a valuable trade in terms of class time. But I think the bigger issue here is that we have created a system that that
Mm-hmm.
allows kids not to read, and in fact incentivizes teachers not to teach reading.
Right.
It says, just now we're at my old site. I'm still in touch with most of my old colleagues, or many of my old colleagues. And now we're moving to the old site is moving to a book club model. So
Nice.
what that means is the kids will all choose their own high interest, which usually means like social justice type novels. So they're high interest, supposedly on level, but honestly, there's a lot of, they're not really difficult. There's no challenge. So right now, right away, you're undermining like the idea of the zone of proximal development. Like you want the kid to be challenged a little bit, you know, so that they can grow. But you let the kids choose the book they're most interested in, and then they sit in a circle and talk to each other about what they read with no teacher direction.
Nice.
Right? Yeah. So the kids who can barely read are going to teach each other the nuances of English literature, and all the important facets of how you deconstruct literature into its different parts of meaning and try to figure out what the author was trying to teach us. You're going to leave that to 14-year-olds, and it's all going to be based on social justice. And like, it's gross. I mean, honestly, it's so insulting to the kids. And many of them will say, like, if you have readers in the class, they're like, this is crap. Right. But a lot of kids aren't readers. And so, and then what they end up doing is they sit in that circle and they bull crap, they spout BS for 45 minutes, and then they write something down, and then the teacher doesn't really take it that closely, because why bother? Because, and I would say too, I do want to just make this clear. I think teachers are responding to incentives too. Like, I don't think they're evil. I think they've just been trained. They understand the system. They're as much conditioned as the students are. Right. And many of them are in situations, financial situations, where this is their best option. And so what the hell else are they supposed to do? And then pushing back is like a losing game, it feels like, most of the time, unless you're like me. I have oppositional defiance disorder. I'm pretty sure that was undiagnosed.
Oh, I have a story for you, but go ahead.
Yeah. I'm just rebellious in general. I don't like being told what to do. But so I'm willing to push back like that. But most people aren't like me. Most people are like, I just want peace. I don't want to fight. I don't want to deal with conflict, which is understandable. That's human nature.
Right.
Yeah. I need them. And I have kids, and I have a mortgage. And I always laugh. People go, how did you become a teacher? I'm like, well, stupidly, I majored in English because I loved reading. And I'm like, what the hell job am I going to do with this? Well, I guess I'm going into teaching. Right. And that's always been my story. And I always laugh about it. It turns out I really like my job and I'm good at it. But like, I didn't know what I was doing when I picked my college, and I didn't know what job. And so what happens to teachers is we got told this bullcrap line in the 80s and 90s, follow your heart, live a dream, right? And it's like, oh wait, my dream doesn't pay anything. And now I'm in debt because I went to college and I signed on the line for the loans. And some kids are coming out of college with $200,000 in debt. So I understand teachers, like, I don't want you guys to think that I'm pooping all over you. I don't mean to. I just want I hope more teachers will look at the structures under which they labor and maybe just try in little ways, just push back a little, be the sage on the stage instead of the guide on the side. Talk about the thing that you know a lot about, lecture, have them take notes, give them a multiple choice test and give them an honest grade, and don't let them retake it. Like, go back to old school 50s mean teacher who, actually did a pretty good job of preparing your grandparents for life. Because my grandma barely graduated high school. Sorry. She was a good reader. She wasn't a great reader. She was a second language learner too, but she was a good reader. She could balance a checkbook. She was very good with people. And but she just went through ninth grade. And honestly, she had a superior education than most of my graduating.
Right.
So I think that we just have to look back at the systems that we have and go, how have they evolved? Why have they evolved this way? And then how can we sort of, I don't want to say turn the clock back, but return to a more traditional type of instruction that serves more kids at scale. Does it work for every kid? No. But if we're going to have this giant, public schooling system, which I think is good for the most part, on balance, I think it's important that you give kids access to learning, but we need to get away from the whole, like, this is about exploring your identity and say, no, we're making citizens here who can actually participate in a representative government. Like, we're not just here to make you feel good about yourself for temporarily, of course, because real confidence, like you said earlier, like, everybody gets a trophy. Real confidence comes from accomplishment. and overcoming difficulties. That's where you get confidence and self-esteem from. No one can give it to you. No one can say, well, you're beautiful and smart and I love you, and so therefore you should feel good about yourself. That doesn't work.
Nope.
So we just have to get back to, we have to start questioning the system. Parents have to push back. Students, I really want students to push back, but a lot of parents are afraid for their kids to push back, understandably. But we'll see. I mean, hopefully more people like you and me will make little dents here and there, and parents will pick up this stuff and go, okay, she's mostly nuts, but I liked at least these 3 points. So, I'll take that. I'll take that.
And there's different ways I found to use it, at least with an online school. So I'm an online nationwide school, right? But how do I avoid, because I teach a history, English honors class that's all put together. Is one of the classes I teach. And so I'm like, how do I get my students to write essays without them cheating? So I have, because of Zoom or whatever, I can literally make them share their screen with me and put them in different, rooms if I want to. I can say, okay, show me your screen, show me that you're writing. Besides, I have Grammarly and stuff that checks stuff like that, but I actually physically watch them write. Or I'll have them write by hand, and then I will have them take screenshots or pictures of their stuff that I'll read, and then I'll make them type them. That's one way I do that. Also, we're project-based, so we don't do a whole lot of writing. We definitely don't do testing unless it's math or maybe a language. So you physically are building a project or a presentation, something that you're retaining from us, and we keep journals, daily journals that they have to type in there of what they've learned and highlights and points and so forth, that they're actively writing that down. But you're going to do a presentation, or you're going to create something, or you're going to do something, and that's your test back to us, so that I know that you've heard this, you've learned this, and you've got this. Then we also read together. So it's something that everybody takes turns. We put it online, and we're going to take a few paragraphs here. You're going to practice your reading. And then on the side, I do this in the library, is I take these teens that are in my local area, and we started a We Read program where they're reading out loud to like 3rd grade and under. So that level is easy for them to most likely read, but it's building up their confidence, building up their proficiency. And next thing you know, they're getting better and better at it. I've had a few tell me that it helps with their public speaking, their presentations, their ability to understand other, further level books, just by continuously reading smaller level books to younger students. And I'm like, who's going to make fun of you? A 3rd grader? They're just so happy you're reading to them, So there's no judgment there like you would against your other teens. And so I found different ways to kind of include reading, but I've been able to bring at least the few students we have up past standards who weren't even at proficiency levels. And I saw this too when I was at public school. My seniors couldn't even tell me a price tag of 10,000. They read it to me 10000. You're like, and that's how much money? They couldn't tell me. I'm like, wow. I mean, just blew me away. Right. So there are ways. I encourage you guys to find different ways to do this, because you're right. Most parents don't even know that your kids automatically almost go right onto a computer when they go to school, or an iPod or a Google tablet or something. And it's like, are you serious?
Really
right? I mean, the teachers aren't even really teaching, especially in like high school levels.
Yeah, no,
like,
it's very bad. I agree. I think parents, listen, I think the parents can do a couple things. It depends on obviously your ability to do this, but I really like the idea of like what you're doing, sort of like a hybrid homeschool, I think is really helpful, where you're homeschooled most of the time, but then you're like, there are 2 or 3 days where you actually go to a physical location for a couple of hours and sort of check in. How am I doing? What's going on? So parents, if you're concerned about what's happening educationally at the local public school, like junior high, high school, I would encourage that, because I think older kids, assuming you don't have like a really problem kid on your hands, I feel like I would trust my 13-year-old, assuming I didn't give him full, like crazy. I mean, I would have to police that to a certain extent. But if I had to work outside the home and I had a place to take him a couple days a week where he could be with other kids, but then he was at home 2 or 3 days a week, I feel like that would be a fair trade, rather than having him be in a public school where there's really no accountability for what he's doing, and it's hard to manage what he's doing.
If they
I'd
even
rather
let
have
you
him
in
do that.
anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I've never had to try, because I've always been in schools, because I've been a teacher most of my life. But I think that here's what you can do. And I'm writing actually a Substack about this. It's just taking me a long time. I'm trying to give parents a playbook for like how to deal with the schools and different options for pushing back. And the
Right.
one I'm working on now is sort of the least confrontational. I think right now, I can't remember what I'm calling it, but it's basically like the Honest Abe play, which is just like, just be honest and ask for this and da da da. So it just requires, if you're going to put your kid in public school and you actually want to watch what they're learning, it requires a lot of time. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have to go on Google Classroom. You're going to have to look at all the handouts. You're going to have to read the readings. You have to read the books that your kids are reading. You're also not going to hear what the teacher says in class unless you're willing to risk, I don't know. It's not like, I don't know the law on this. So again, I am not a lawyer. So I'm going to make that disclaimer right now. But there is also no expectation of privacy in a classroom because you're in there with 40 kids. So there shouldn't, I don't know that like recording laws are relevant here, but they have little keychain recorders on Amazon. And you can buy like a $50, $60 keychain recorder and just strap it to your kid's backpack. And it records like 100, like thousands of hours if you need it to. So what I would do, and this would assume you have a really good relationship with your kid. I'm not saying this to monitor your kid. I'm saying this that like, hey, if you hear something weird in class, what class was it? Oh, it was my English class. Well, what time is that class? Oh, it's at 9. Okay. And then you can listen to it. What did the teacher say? Was it really weird or is it? And then even if you never confront the teacher, right, you can have that conversation with the kid. Okay, well, your teacher said this. Here's how our family, this is what our family believes about that. This is what we believe, and here's why we believe it. And you're going to have to basically be militantly on guard with your kids in the most, hopefully with teenagers, the most unobtrusive way as possible, which is really difficult because basically they want to be independent, which is natural for them to want to be independent, and they want to believe that they can protect themselves. They don't really know what they're up against. Honestly, they don't understand how the system is structured, but they're like, oh, I don't listen to that teacher. He's an idiot or she's stupid. So I don't really care what they say. But the problem is the way grades work is the kids are incentivized to repeat the nonsense because that's how you get a good grade, right? You don't go against the teacher. If you want A's, you will repeat what the teacher said with infidelity and act like you also agree. And that will happen in science classes, history classes, and English classes. Math, not so much. Electives, probably not. I mean, if you're taking art or music, like they can't get on you too much. You're not really writing essays in there. Not that you write essays really anywhere at this point, but just the things you say and how you respond to questions can be problematic. So, but at that point, here's my like, so I said, oh, you have to invest all this time. Well, okay, what's the damn point? Why are you keeping them there if you're going to have to do all this bird dogging constantly to be like, oh, what did you learn in English? Oh, now I have to listen to this recording. Oh my God, this reading is insane. Why did she give you this? Is she going to allow you to argue it? Are you going to be able to ask, critical questions of why this author thinks that everything's racist? Like, how are you going to, and even then, you're putting an enormous burden on your kid's back. A 15-year-old going up against a seasoned teacher who has every coercive power available, right? God forbid it's a popular teacher, right? Because like if it's a teacher most kids like, and you're going to push back on them, now you're going to turn your class against you. And the unpopular teachers can use grades and other punishment.
Thank you. Yeah.
To make things hard for you. And I'm not saying teachers are vindictive because a lot of them aren't. Some of them are rad. Some of them really like encourage that kind of dialogue because they don't buy into this bull crap either. But they're paid to teach a certain way and say certain things. And if the curriculum says you have to read this book or this essay or show this video, then guess what? You got to do it. Even if you disagree with it.
And it's not just the teacher. You're going up against the administration too, because the teacher could get in trouble for not doing her job.
Yeah.
So I wish everything was live like we are right here, in the classroom. Everyone says put a camera in. With me, that's the benefit of being online. We are live. You totally see that. And parents could watch it and we're recorded. You can watch the whole class. The only thing I would say about your little camera thing is make sure that parents, you cannot tape the other kids. That's against the law, but you can tape that teacher.
Yeah, no, not a camera.
But you can't show minors.
They're just recording devices for audio. So
okay, well, there you
only.
go. There you go.
That
That's
way
awesome.
it's like, I'm not looking at kids. Obviously you don't want no pictures of kids. Yeah, I agree.
Right.
But an audio recording device is, I think probably is, and it is, especially if you're not using it to like, I'm going to sue the school. Like it can't be that. It has to be just like, I'm making sure that my kid is not hearing things that I don't, that as a family, we don't agree with. Because at the end of the day, I do not agree that the state owns your child, which apparently many teachers now think, which is insane. Teachers, administrators, and other quote unquote educators. I hate that word.
Right.
Because what it really means is like people who don't actually teach kids, but are somehow tangentially involved in education, but whatever. That these people think that, well, we own your kid because, you know, it's a village, right? It takes a village. And so we're all the parents of these children. Like, no, you're not. Because here's the thing. And when teachers say that, I really hope, if any kids hear this, I know that was probably pretty rare, but if any children hear this, I want you to recognize something. That teacher can be the most sweet, wonderful, huggy, lovey, whatever. They're going to forget your name in 2 years. So don't you dare think this teacher loves you more than your parents do. And your parents are with you every day, all day. They have to put up with all your crap, all your teenage nonsense and drama. That teacher only has you for 45 minutes or 50 minutes, and then you're gone and she forgets all about you. So if you think that all this, like, oh, she cares so much about me and she wants me to be so happy and blah, 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 and she's encouraging me to explore all these things, it's like, she is never going to deal with the fallout of that. If things go very badly for you, that teacher never has to call you again, see you again. Even if you came to her door and knocked on her door and said, remember when you taught me all this? Well, it went really badly for me. Guess what she can do? She can close the damn door on your face. She has no responsibility to you. So just remember that. Don't get emotionally attached to teachers, because their job is a short-time job, and a good teacher will do it with fidelity and they care about you, but they are not a replacement for your parents. And parents, you need to recognize teachers can't replace you. Even the best teacher in the world, even if you want them to, even if you feel unqualified to do the work of a parent, no one's going to love your kid more than you do. So, you know, just remember, even if maybe you're not perfect and, you know, things that you wish you hadn't said, you say. We've all been there, I'm sure, as parents. We've said things to our kids that we wish we hadn't said. Like, you are the one that's going to be with this kid forever. For as long as you're alive, they're going to be looking at you. So you have to do this job as hard as it is. And you cannot trust the schools to do it. Cannot.
No, you're right. And I'm so glad you said that, because I was talking to one of the local schools and they brought up FERPA, FERPA. And the way they wanted to manipulate that is, and that's Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, if you don't know. They want to manipulate it by saying that we are literally going to not only hone in, we're going to protect all kids, and you have no rights. You have no rights to their information. You don't have to share everything. There's one line that's similar. It kind of says that one line, but if you read the whole paragraph and you read actually the whole law, it actually doesn't say that. It says that your family has a right to all of that. So make sure that you guys are reading up on these things so that you know that that is actually the family's right. And you can sit there and say, no, I do want to look at your lesson plan because I have a right under FERPA. And they want to manipulate and say you don't have rights, that these are our kids. But guess what? You do under FERPA. You can say, I want to see your lesson plan. I want to see your curriculum. I want to see your syllabus for the year. And I show that to all my parents who want to see it, but I post it also too, you know, the kids can see it, the families can see it, but your public schools don't do that. But you could absolutely request that. And they might use a certain thing to manipulate you, but under FERPA, you have the rights to request that information. Don't let them tell you you don't. And that's a law. So that's another advocate for parents. I say, you know, find out what they're doing. And you know this as much as probably I do as a public school, well, former for me, is even our lesson plans had to be written in a social emotional learning content, period, and a discussion. And so if you look at a lesson plan and you see it's framed this way, that's coming from the administration. And maybe that's where you start going, why is everything based off of the social emotional learning? You know, ask the teacher to show you her lesson plan.
I won't, I don't mean to be disagreeable, but I think that lesson plans are useless because most teachers phone them in. They're bull crap. So like, they don't actually follow the lesson plan. They only follow lesson plans that are mandated for them to follow. So like, if there's a particular scope and sequence of a lesson, then they'll do that, especially if they're being watched. So like an SEL lesson might be that, because those are like now mandated in states like So your blue states like Illinois, California, New York, those are like those are mandated. So teachers will follow those sort of very closely. But otherwise, I feel like most teachers, especially at the high school level, like they know they don't know their content deeply, but they know what they're supposed to teach. And most of my colleagues had a 180 slide deck, like PowerPoint, right? And it was like day one, read this, do this, right? And they just like put it on the screen, and that's what the kids would do. And so I think that is useful information, because what you would see is what, as a parent, so if I'm looking at this critically from a family perspective, the way I would tell parents to look at, instead of kicking up a hornet's nest at the district office or the admin, which you should if you feel like your kid's in danger or the ideas are really gross, right? If they go against, if they're like if they're pro-communist, most states have laws against pro-communist ideology. So I would kick up a fuss over that. I would kick up a fuss over anything sexualizing. If I felt that it was inappropriately sexual, I'd kick up a fuss over that. But anything that's like sort of ideological, like tenure protections, especially in blue states, allow teachers quite a bit of leeway, right? So what you have to do is go, okay, what did you read? Or what video did you watch? Right? I want to see that. And let's talk about that. Right? Don't worry about, and again, what the teacher says, depending on the teacher, like if the teacher has a lot of gravitas, like if the teacher is well respected, if the teacher is well liked, that's where your kid's going to start to balk and sort of, and like not want to tell you things. Like they're going to say, oh, don't worry about it. I did my homework. Don't worry, blah, blah, blah. But you need to be on top of the readings and the videos and sort of what kind of messages is my kid getting. And then you need to really debunk this idea of teacher as expert. And I'm going to make that really easy for you guys. Just take your kid to the DMV and ask them if they're impressed with the service at the DMV. And then say, these people are government employees. They have generally, their jobs are highly protected. They can't really get fired. And how many teachers have you had? And you can talk to your kid really openly. How many teachers have you had where you've seen them basically say something completely wrong and not back off of it, like where they've been wrong and you knew they were wrong? And then usually you'll get kids be like, oh yeah, that happened in my science class, or that happened over here, and the teacher got really mad when we asked the question about it, and that happens because obviously many teachers suffer from imposter syndrome, where they know they don't really know that much, but they have to pretend, and they feel really bad about it, but not bad enough to actually study, because the job doesn't incentivize that. Why would I do extra work when I have all this bullcrap administrative stuff to tend to constantly? And teachers, trust me, I'm giving you as much grace as I can. I understand the stress. I understand how the cognitive dissonance, how painful it is to have gone into a job thinking I'm going to help kids, I'm going to change lives, and the end of the day, the system stymies you at every turn. You're trying to help, and they go, don't do that. Or we're going to make that really hard for you to do. You can try to do that, but we're going to make it real hard. And so you just give up. But you still get your paycheck. So trust me, I understand. But parents, you have to, if you get to the point where you should know before, you need to have these conversations early on, and you need to be able to say, look, your teachers aren't that bright. They're really not that bright. They only know what's in your textbook. And that's not even guaranteed half the time. They don't really know that much. They're giving worksheets. They're giving you these handouts that are pre-made, mostly. They're pre-made by somewhere else. Teachers love teachers pay teachers, understandably, because it cuts way back on your prep time. But all that stuff is not yours, right? So that means your intellectual effort, teacher's intellectual effort doesn't go into it, which means they don't necessarily know what's on it, which means your kids kind of flying blind, which means kids don't trust everything that comes out of their mouths like they're experts. They're not. And it's okay. And it went to that. This is the last thing. Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to cut you off. This is an economics thing. If these people believed they were employable elsewhere, because if you listen to how much teachers bitch about how bad their job is, wouldn't they leave? But what the reality is, they don't believe that they are employable elsewhere. Otherwise, they would go. And so if you see the ones that do have, that's why it's hard to get math teachers and STEM teachers that are any good, because those guys have real high paying skills. So they know it. So they're not in classrooms. And so I just want to parents need to bring that back out. Hey, I know you trust your teacher, and it's good that you trust and respect your teachers, and you should always treat them with respect. Even if you don't respect them really, just treat them with respect. It's a good default because they have power, right? So treat them with respect, but question what they say. Just because they're standing in front of the room doesn't mean they know what they're talking about. And let's talk about it. Why don't you bring it home to me, your questions, and we'll look it up and we'll read some books and we'll figure it out.
I'm so glad you said that, because I was going to point out, and you talked about math, especially since that's like a #1 field that schools are desperate for. I have seen teachers that were hired for English teachers and then got placed as math teachers because they were somewhat, okay with or doing math at that level per se, but they didn't have anybody else. And I had a teacher who was a great friend of mine, and she was like always complaining. She's like, I didn't get hired for this. But she ended up doing great with math, but that wasn't her forte. That wasn't even her degree or even what she was hired for, but they needed a math teacher. So she is, like you said, reverberating what the same thing that they give her, the sheets that they give her. She knew the skills, but that wasn't her background. And then not everybody are like me, where I have multiple degrees. And I mean, I teach another class is culinary, but I was a chef for 20 something years of my own business. So a lot of teachers aren't like me, that have multiple things in the background, that have different experiences, and being able to bring to the table. They're literally gone, they've been trained, they've gone to a university, they think that they've got that, and they might be really good at that field. And they might not even be working in that same field they even graduated from. And then, of course, mandates on what you are teaching and what you're not teaching. And maybe they, are doing the best they can, but their hands are tied to a certain extent too. I saw this a lot. And, I know there's a whole bunch of great teachers out there, but, it's like the system's against you too. And you're right. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, because we talked about sort of grade inflation before, like your kids are getting good grades. And so most parents will take that as a proxy for everything's fine. Well, my kid's got an A or a B. We've got a C in math, but he always struggles with math. So, let's not sweat him too much about that. But we take the grades as a proxy for everything is okay. But I just want to bring this up. I don't know how much you want to talk about it. Grade inflation is a real problem. And we can talk about the mechanism for that. But I also want to point out it's also a problem in universities. So it's a huge problem in universities, especially among soft majors. So your English major, your history major, your psych major, so most of the majors that produce teachers are the worst for grade inflation. And you're not pulling most people who go to like the Ivies where, or even just the really great state schools, they're not going into education, right? That's not where they're going. They're going elsewhere because obviously they're paying a lot for this degree, and we can call it whatever we want, but they're in a small group, so they're in high demand because of their degree. So they're not going to become public school teachers, right? So you're drawing from a pool of people who generally didn't work super hard in college, and then often their majors don't translate directly to their field, right? So like in a pure history major is, unless they majored in you don't ever major, well, I mean, I guess you can major in just history, but like you're going to be teaching US history. So how much do you actually know about that? And how was it taught in college too? Because right now, the pervading philosophy about US history is, the US is this evil hegemon. And I can argue that too. I would argue that that's partially true. We have an empire and it's been really bad for America. Yes. Yeah, it's been bad for America. But I think the foundational ideals, obviously, our country was built on are worth preserving and protecting and even celebrating. And I think that's important to note. So, but at the same time, so what I'm saying is the overarching problem is you have teachers who really aren't that good. And that's why I wish we had and the states will never lighten up on this because the teachers unions are such powerful political forces. They funnel so much money to state legislatures in every state that what you really need is alternative certification programs. So ex-engineers can be in the classroom. People who've actually done math and built things can then teach kids to do math to build things. Right. And, people who, created products that were, chemically chemical. So even chefs, obviously, chemistry is really important to chefs. So a chef should be able to teach a food chemistry course without any problems and talk about why this stuff matters. And people who produce worked in plastics or manufacturing should be able to teach chemistry courses and even physics courses and engineering courses. But those people are locked out. They're
Yep.
basically locked out. And that is an absolute crime.
Well, a lot of reasons is pay. Another great benefit of having that is our nurse teaches health and nutrition. Our mathematician in the field of engineering teaches our math essentials program, right? That's why I was saying with economics, with her literally rolling out, here's how you write a business plan. This is how you find out funding. This is how you do logos and marketing, whatever, because she's done it, in a mathematics field. And it's like, that is a difference. But I'm a private school. I allow that. I hire that, I look for that. Versus, right. And then you have, like you said before, you've got these great mathematicians, but yet they're going to make 40,000 or so in a public school versus 100,000 somewhere else. Where are you going to choose? You have a lot more options.
And
right.
Let's not forget that they'd have to put up with the insane, complete refusal of administration to enforce any behavior standards whatsoever.
Right.
So you're totally hanging those people out to dry.
Right.
I mean, unless they're like, because, and this is a stereotype, but the STEM people tend not to be like super outgoing and hilarious. I mean, there are the random exceptions to that, but these are people that are they're thoughtful, they're intelligent, they are methodical, right? And so that's not the typical teacher that like can survive the current public school environment. The teacher survivor right now is either an absolute Nazi, like sit down, shut up, do the worksheet, and we won't have any problems. Or they are, have a great personality. They're hilarious. They're willing to put up with a lot of nonsense. And either that, or you're in full survival mode where you just say, do whatever you want, but I'm not going to bother trying to teach. Right. Which is probably the most common approach right now is, here's your assignment. I'm up here at my desk if you need help, but I'll leave you alone if you don't, and you can be on your phone and have your AirPods in and whatever, and I won't bug you, and we can just peaceably agree to live our own separate lives, like basically.
Right. There's no consequences for these youth, and there's no discipline whatsoever to make them even try.
But what's the point? Because what's happened is the federal government disincentivized that by saying, like, you have to have sort of equal ratios of suspensions to whatever your demographic makeup is.
Right.
So like, you can't have a disproportionate number of Hispanic kids suspended. If there's, if you only have 50% or 60% Latino population, then you can only have 60% of your suspensions can be Latino. So you either have to suspend more white kids or fewer Latinos, right? If you're going to try to suspend. So guess what everybody did? They just went, okay, we're not suspending anybody. Because there's no way you can go, well, we've already hit our limit of Latinos, so now we got to find some Asians to suspend. Like, that's not going to happen. Like, no one's going to do that. So we have these insane incentives behind the scenes that people don't know about. And they're like, why is this crap happening? Well, it's because we have these insane incentives that are behind the scenes. So what are we supposed to do about it?
Right. It's why parents need to be, again, so involved. Because if your kids are not doing well, obviously they're struggling. And there's not, we do something different. We don't receive IEP funding, but we have what's called ISPs, your individual student plan. So I can actually go, this is not working for your kid, and I have to find somewhere different. We do that with everyone. I wish they all kind of have these. And I understand that's a funding thing and whatever, I get it. But we just do this because I want to know that that's not working for your kid. And some kids are acting out. A lot of kids are acting out because they're not getting it. They're not understanding it. It's either too fast or too slow. They're bored or they're just not getting it. And that, like you said, with the teacher, if there's no discipline in place, even for the backing the teacher, then most likely they're just gonna be like, here's your assignment. Do it if you want to. I'm here for help. And what are they? They're not learning. They're not learning a single thing.
And then the reason they all have cover right now is because grading for equity.
That's right.
So like, there's late work is totally acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
If whatever you turn in that is evidence of a skill, and that word skill is stretched real far, right? Like, oh, in an English class, what's evidence of skill? Well, I did a PowerPoint slide. It has words on it. And then I talked about it for 3 seconds in the class, right? That becomes evidence of a skill, right? And so all of these things allow for people to sort of game the system, and it allows for teachers to have cover to sit in the back of the room and not teach, and allows them to, like in your traditional public schools, right? This is not happening in every school, but It allows them to sit in the back, not teach, say, here's your assignment, do it whenever, turn it in whenever, and I'll grade it when it's done. And if that's at the 11th hour, that's at the 11th hour. And a lot of kids in my like last school, that happened often. The kids were at the 11th hour turning in whatever they could to make sure they magically got their D. And I had counselors calling me, oh, isn't there something this child can do? I'm like, he literally has 7% in my class. Like, I don't know what you want me to do. Well, I mean, it is an English class, so can't he just write, a paper, and that would be the essential skills would be demonstrated, and he can read, so maybe you could have him read an article or something and then answer some questions about, like, this is where we are. So
Right.
basically in one day, and I'm going to let me talk about that too, because I think this is something else parents need to know. In
Right.
one day, a kid can go from, I have an F and no hope of passing, to I got a D or even a C, right? And I'd see kids go from D's to A's in other people's classes. I'm like, what the hell? Like in the last week of school, I'm like, how is this happening? Grading for equity, because the teachers were encouraged to adopt that policy. And then the other thing that goes along with this, it's really important.
Did I lose you? Are you with me still? I can't hear my dissident teacher. Hello, are you there? Hopefully she comes back here real soon. I don't know why I can't hear her, but absolutely we have the same problem where, this pass fail thing that you guys, a lot of you saw during the COVID year where they just get a P. I've actually been told too that I worked for a public school where nobody failed, period, end of discussion. And there were students I had never even met, stepped a day foot in there, ever met, had never done anything, never were in my classroom. And I still, on the last day, had to find a way to give them a passing grade. And hopefully she bounces back in here. But it was unbelievable. So in that one day, they got to do one assignment for the whole entire year, and we had to pass them because there was no failing in the classroom. I just could not believe that was something that was being allowed. And frankly, it was just really shocking that even our advisors or our administration were pushing towards that, so that this could be something new, or something that was, even if you had never even met the student, just to give them that equity, in that grading system. So I'm going to pause this, and hopefully she'll be able to join us back here in just a minute. All right. This is also, before I do that, a great time to show you her website. So everyone, hopefully you can see this. Let me just move this out of the way. This is the Dissident Teacher. You find it at educatedandfree.substack.com. And you can see right here, at the very beginning, your kids aren't learning. Mastery minus base learning plus equitable grading equals fraud. Again, everyone, the Dissident Teacher. You could find this at educatedandfree.substack.com. All right, everyone, we are back, so all right, the Dissident Teacher, before she leaves and finishes her day, we have some amazing things she wanted to touch base on. So we're going to let her finish her point, and then we'll show you where you can find her again. Go ahead.
Okay, so the one thing I just really want parents to be aware of is this idea of credit recovery. And usually these take the form of online classes. They are through multiple companies have them, and they contract with the school district. And basically it's a completely online curriculum. Now summer schools have more or less just moved to this, where the kids sit in front of a computer and they have the curriculum in front of them, and they have to pass a certain number of tests in order to get credit for the class. Now here's the rub. I knew this was a scam. Like, it started, gosh, it must have started in like 2015, 2016, right around there. Because one of my old schools, which was a really low performing school, basically was like, hey, teachers, you want to make some extra money after school? You can come and teach the online credit recovery program. And I didn't want to do it, but I was hearing from my colleagues that it was like really easy money. And I'm like, well, what do you do? And basically the kids sit in there in the room on their computers, and they just take the tests over and over and over again until they get enough answers right. Now, here's the other part. These are not on like secure browsers, so the kids can open up Google and look up answers. So the really savvy kids have figured it out, and they've they've gotten to the point where they have their phone and the computer, and they can literally just take pictures of the computer screen, of the questions on the computer screen, and do like a reverse photo search on Google if they're really smart, or they can just ask Siri, which a lot of them do because they're not really that great with technology. Hilariously, everyone says, "Oh, this is the digital generation." I'm like, yeah, they don't know how to use a computer, so let's stop pretending. Anyway, but then so what they do, so I had a kid tell me this story. I had a mom tell me this story. It was during COVID, so obviously everyone was having a hard time. And her son, who normally does well in school, got I think like a D and a C in his U.S. history class. So it was a whole year of U.S. history. And so they offered him credit recovery because this was a wealthy family. So their kid was going to straight to a 4-year, right? And the kid, she said, my son finished both the whole year of U.S. history in 3 hours on a Saturday morning, and he got 2 A's. He replaced his D and a C with 2 A's. So just so you know, they don't care if your kid learns a damn thing. All they care about is they get their attendance money and their graduation rate stays high. They don't care how it stays high. This is why this grading for equity is cute, because it gives them, oh, we're trying to help with, decrease systemic inequities or whatever in America by recognizing the differences in cultures and ways of knowing. And so they have that cover, but in reality, it just is a way for them to raise their graduation rate to 98 or 99%. So it looks like they're doing their job. And then nobody complains because kids have A's and B's. And so, the upper middle class kids can go to college. The kids who would traditionally not do well and maybe fail or not get diplomas can be pushed through and get at least a diploma. And so it's like, it looks like a win-win, but it's the level of fraud on this is disgusting. It's horrifying. And if we started totaling up the wasted hours and the wasted lives, like, I don't even know. Right. I would say it would be a significant dent on GDP every year. Like, it literally, you have to subtract it from GDP.
Right. And sorry, when I'm back, I really want to thank the Dissident Teacher for that wonderful interview. I am so grateful that she was able to come and speak with us. I mean, it's something that inflames me as I was even re-listening to this interview. And some points that I've made here too. The grade inflation is a real thing. In fact, I was mentioning to her that even my kids, when they were in middle school, at the public school, they would go and they'd get onto the computers and they would just do tests after test after test until they got a certain grade point average that was okay and acceptable, memorizing more tests to pass the other tests. And it was just crazy. And this was not even a summer program. This was actually happening in the school every single day. Something else, it just shows another way for them to get funded. If you have these counselors and administrations putting of how do these kids get good grades so that they can get higher percentages so that they can pass a class or whatever, and that you can get your funding. This is another way public schools get funded. And they also get high marks on the way they look, right? And this is another major problem, this grade inflation. And if they get to just use their technology or use their phones to do and pass these tests, or go to these new even programs that you hear now with Chat GPT and stuff, where they can write your papers for you and things like that. I mean, this is a huge problem just to pass kids along, and they stay more confused. They're not really learning anything. There's a few things I wanted to talk about before we leave tonight. I really want to say, how do we make things different? How do I make these things different? Having a school of my own. As you see that I've found ways to prove that kids are actually writing in my class, and it was super important for me to do that. But also, I wanted to make sure that you made a point about how we don't really tell our kids anymore that, go after this. You don't want them to say, like, go after these people, right? You want to make sure that you tell them, if this is a popular teacher or so forth. It's really hard. They don't want to go against the crowd. One thing that's different with me is I always say, hey, if you don't believe me, prove me wrong. And I don't say that in an arrogant manner. I love it. You want to bring some new information to the table? Let's do that. Let's analyze that. I talked about failing before. If we do an invention or an experiment, awesome, it didn't work. I'm not that I always want that awesomely, but I want the kids to understand how to achieve over failure, how to make something and redo it and make it work, how to learn a lesson like, oh, that didn't work, and how can I still survive or thrive even if it didn't work. So I love it when kids and students ask me questions, or we have to rework a presentation or a invention or an experiment. I mean, I really do enjoy it to do these things. That's what makes me different. And I am one of those different teachers who do remember students, and touch bases with ones. I may not remember every single student, but I can still remember, a couple dozen students that I did teach in public school that I'm just that way. I wish more teachers were like that. I'm not trying to replace any family per se. They will always love you the most. But, I mean, we need to make an impact on these students' lives as well, too, but teaching them great foundations, teaching them ways that they're going to actually learn. And we see that everything is stacked against the students, stacked the families against the teachers, and it's the system that keeps on and on and on with this. And it's just absolutely unacceptable. As parents, the only thing you can do is actually get involved or choose a different school. I try to make this choice. Everyone knows I have a nationwide online high school that's going really well. We're going to be testing out some new grade levels here coming up soon, but we really focus on our teens as they are stepping into adulthood. What makes us different is we're project based. We don't test like other students. You don't come on on my class and sit there and practice tests. In fact, very seldom do you even see a test. You have to give a presentation. You have to create something physically. You have to keep a journal every day of what you're learning. You have to read with the class. You have to do math with the class. Everything is live and recorded so parents can watch and be a part of that. I do provide a lesson plan, which is something I follow. And I hate to hear that teachers just have this generic lesson plan that they just put out. You know exactly what we're going to be reading. You know exactly, I might show a video, but then if you want to see that, you can either ask what the class is and we will show you that, or you can just literally watch it live, and you can always approach us because we're here to listen. But I am so thankful for people like the Dissident Teacher, her helping me and others try to shed light on what's going on with our education system. And it's completely broken all the way up to the tying of our hands through the funding, which I've brought multiple awareness of these different title programs, that the funding comes from the federal government. The DOA makes sure that all the schools receive the same funding, and it's the bulk of it. Our state taxes goes up to the federal level and it's dished out, and that's put because of the No Child Left Behind. Is the schools wanted to the ability to have every student achieve at least a certain level, the equity thing, right? But unfortunately, what's happened is it's created a curriculum that's mandated through the administration. It's a reward system. And again, it's just like she said, it's just something that the kids can pass, and they're not learning how to actually, well, first of all, they're not learning, and they're definitely not learning how to succeed as adults. Excuse me. Sorry, everyone. It's been a long day of talking. So there was something else too on here that I wanted to write. Nope, we've reached it all. I just wanted to let you know that I am really, really thankful for my guests today. I want to share again. You can reach out to the Dissident Teacher on Substack, and it's educatedandfree.substack.com. I have this in the show's notes, as well as Brian Snuffer's art as well. And you can find both of those people and follow them and reach out to them, and help us support each other and bring awareness is a great thing. And if you just need a different option, you want your students to learn, because something else that she had pointed out in our discussion is these kids aren't going to be competing against normal anymore. They're going to be competing against AI jobs. And if you don't learn and have these actual skills, what are you going to bring to the table? And especially on reading, I've talked about this before too. I don't want to grow up in an area or be in an area where I had to depend on somebody else to read something for me. I want to be able to have the ability to read and research and take things critically, analyze it. I can't even tell you how terrifying that would be to live in a world where you couldn't read or understand what is going on around you. But if they just live their lives on social media, and they're dealing with just emotional thought, then they don't necessarily think about that. We're just going to pass you, and the school system becomes a total chaos as we're seeing now. And I, for one, and I've told this many times before, this is the hill I'm going to die on, because our youth need to learn. They need to have real education. And I'm sorry that this is not happening in our public school systems. One of the reasons I left it, I was in a position too where I was one of those like her, like a rebel against my class. I'm like, I'm either going to do this or you can just go ahead and pay me. And I was under contract, pay me or fire me. But I want these kids to know that they have a pathway to their futures. And I'm going to show them how to get that, whether it's trade school or they can build their own business or they can go to college. Here are the grants that you need for this. Here's the grants you might need for your trade school. Here's how you get grants. What are you doing in your communities? The Adulting 101 class we have, which teaches you anything from your basic household responsibilities and budget, checking accounts, to automotive and plumbing. I mean, craziness, right? To even your fast foods and your SAT tests, your trade schools, and your how to build your own business, like I said before. We want to make sure that our youth become responsible, foundational young individuals of tomorrow. And we're not seeing that in our school systems, unfortunately. So if we can be an avenue for you, please reach out to Hamilton Liberty Academy, because we are here making a difference and teaching these kids real foundations that they're retaining, that they're learning, they're building projects, they're coming up with presentations. These kids amaze me every single day. And I'm thrilled to not only teach, I'm thrilled to be a headmaster of it and to bring you, again, these great other guests that I have that are doing great things in their communities and in our nation, to bring this kind of awareness to you, like the Dissident Teacher, or creating great artwork like Brian is. We're just thankful for both of those. So everyone, I am really grateful that you were here with me tonight. We ran a little bit longer today. And again, I'm thankful for both of our guests. I will see you next Friday with another amazing an author, which I'm very excited for, that she does children's books. So I look forward to seeing you then. Sunday will be a great show as well for us, for the Sunday Solutions for Headmaster's Homeroom. We're going to be talking about herbs, how to pick herbs, how to tend to them, how to dry them. I'm sure I'll be whipping up some kind of fun recipe for you as well, using our wonderful honey or something to go with these beautiful vegetables that we're growing. I have updates on gardening. I have a phenomenal book that I'll be sharing with you as well that talks about winter gardening, which is something I never even thought about before, by having an all year round garden. That's really difficult sometimes. You think, how am I going to grow things in the winter? But I found an amazing book. And then also last Sunday, it was really hard for me to try to share certain websites with you because of the nonstop with the pop-ups and the Google and the whatever. So I'm actually going to make a little PowerPoint just to show you edible herbs. So you have a few minutes of that and you could see that, as you know, that I found like 7 in my yard. So I'd love to bring you actual solutions too. And we're going to be talking about gardening and herbs this Sunday. So make sure that you check us out for that. That's Headmaster's Homeroom. It's Sunday Solutions at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And please also check out our other shows. Our producer has 3 by himself on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 5 p.m. Then one with his beautiful wife on Saturdays at 7 p.m. called Around the Family Table. We have Bernie Flowers on Tuesday and Tamara McKay on Thursdays. And then I get to see you on Friday nights and Sunday afternoons, which is, again, a true pleasure to bring you these wonderful guests and highlight who they are and what they're doing in their communities and in our nation. If you have a story that you would like us to share or you'd like to come on, we'd love to hear from you. So please reach out. You can find me on most social medias at Lady Hamilton Art. That's a great way as well. You can always put a comment on there too, and we'll reach out to you that way. You can, again, find us on Twitter, and you can find us on Facebook and Rumble and Truth and Getter. We're on multiple different things. So please reach out. We'd love to share your story. I know I would. What you're doing in the community, if you start a program, please, again, reach out. And if you would like to be a sponsor, we would love to also highlight your business. So again, please reach out. You can either find us on Liberty Arise, or you can personally reach out to me at Lady Hamilton Art, and I would love to hear from you. I love to finish the show with a song. This is one of the favorites I play for my school and students. He's a great artist, and he's got great new music, but I am going to play you my favorite. Hopefully YouTube will let me do that without problems. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. He has given me permission to do that. So I'm going to load that up and for everybody. So they'll have their own thing. But I did ask him, and he's time. So let's get here. I hope everybody has a great night. Before you leave, please hit your thumbs up, your like button. Please follow us and share. That really helps out our platform. If you can do anything to help promote us, that would be great. If you love some great honey, you could go to Be Nourished, and they are phenomenal, and you get 22% off by using Liberty. And we appreciate you very, very much. So everyone, I will see you Sunday. And I look forward to, did that go? I don't think, I'm sorry. I look forward to making sure that we're continuing to bring you different wonderful people coming up with wonderful solutions in our nation. And it's trying to load that up. It's giving me already troubles looking at YouTube. There we go. All right, everyone, have a great Friday night, and I will see you Sunday. All right, let's see. Here we go. You're Special from Ron J. Spike.
Start trying, you better follow your dream. That's right. Don't get hurt, you got off for crying. Go on the beach, feel the breeze, just sit back and breathe. They say that you can, but is that what you believe? You gotta believe, be the light that you need, be the light that you need, girl. I hope you following me, girl. Just be the light that you need, girl. I hope you following your dreams, girl. And don't listen to them diamonds when they say side of the road ended up being the wrong way. I was too smart for the hard way. I just ended up taking the long way. But I made it out the hole. I voted for me. Now my city won't bury me whole. The house that I'm staying at no longer feels like a home. All these stress on the net, they won't leave me alone. They think I'm being controlled. No, I just thought for myself when I got in my zone. All my life I turned on believers just to see it. They still can't believe that they see it. I told a few people I love them and they ain't believe it. The road to the top, they ain't come with me. They ain't wanna give me no company. I wanted to pull, I got oceans. You already know I'm a big dreamer. Small circle in a two-seater. You know they told me I couldn't do it either. Man, I can't wait till they see me. Can you show me your imagination? Put it on cruise when you're mile racing. Think about it every single second. You know you can't have anything. Just start trying. You better follow your dream. It's right in front of you. Trust me, no more hiding. I know it get hard. You gotta fight, no crying. Take off your shoes and just go walk on the beach. Just feel the breeze, just sit back and breathe. They say that you can, but is that what you believe? You gotta believe. Be the light that you need, be the light that you need, girl. I hope you following me, girl. Just be the light that you need, girl. I hope you follow your dreams, girl. And don't listen to them diamonds when they say you need them. Just know that we the people. If they don't tell you love you, I'll tell you. You don't need it. We can't get through this together. It's possible, believe it. I know it's so hard to trust me, but trust yourself and see it. And keep on your face. You can't write somebody's day. Just care less what they say. And keep them at arm's length. Don't listen to hate. Y'all misleading. just always know you doing it cause they gotta hate for a reason. Clear your mind, let your thoughts whisper. See a future where the sky's clear. If it didn't work the first time, ball it up, see a new vision. Only thing you should be scared of is allowing life to slip through your fingers. It's really nothing to be scared of. You know you can have anything. Just start trying, you better follow your dream. It's right in front of you, trust me, no more hiding. I know it get hard, you gotta fight, no crying. Take off your shoes and just go up on it.
I love that song. So everyone, just so you know, that song is called You're Special from Ron J. Spike. So as I leave tonight, everyone know that you are special and God loves you. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. And I will see you on Sunday.